What's going on? It's Astronaut H, and this is the What More Do You Want Network. Now, in this video is a continuation of the series of videos I've been releasing, and that's asking the question, how many games will this NBA team win this season? And in this video, I will be discussing the San Antonio Spurs. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, right? Last season, I wasn't too much invested in the San Antonio Spurs and things that they had going on last year. I knew that last year they did have a younger core than, years of the past, and just looking at their roster this year, I can honestly say I think that the San Antonio Spurs are going to have the worst record in the NBA this year. I know people are saying, how can you say that when Popovich is still the coach? How can you say that when the Spurs play a certain type of basketball? How can you say that when, San Antonio has never been that bad since the days of old? But I can honestly tell you guys, right, just looking at their roster, and you tell me what you think, honestly, let me know in the comments. I'm going to run off some names, and you guys let me know, do you see this team actually competing in not only the West but in the league? Let me run off some names. Zach Collins, who's not a bad player, but is Zach Collins. Courtney Jang, Alize Johnson, Kendall Johnson, who I like. I think he's good. I mean, I don't think he's all a bad player. He's not that bad. He's not a terrible player. But let me continue. Trey Jones, Romeo Langford, Doug McDermott, who might be the most consistent player on their roster, Jakob Pearl, Josh Richardson, Devin Vesely. Like, I'm looking at these names, and nobody's. They have Dominic Barlow. He's 19, but none of these guys are jumping off the page for me as far as rosters go. Now, granted, they did trade, Lonnie Walker and DeJounte Murray last season. So, they didn't trade. I'm sorry. Lonnie Walker didn't end up being traded. I'm sorry. But they ended up basically saying this is the time for a rebuild. And in my opinion, when you have teams like the Spurs, right, and you say, how good could they be? Or last year, when you look at wins and losses, and they weren't a 40-win team, and they have missed the playoffs over the last 3 seasons, you say, maybe it's time for Greg Popovich, who I believe is the greatest coach in NBA history. No disrespect to Phil Jackson or Red Auerbach, but I think Greg Popovich, when it comes to putting talent together, when it comes to making something out of nothing, because regardless if people want to believe it or not, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili weren't, heavily recruited or touted by other scouts in the league. When you look at how Kawhi came into the league with zero to little offensive game, and the Spurs built his offensive, prowess to what it is. Not saying he didn't put the work in also, but they had something to do with actually building his offensive game. And you look at the days of the 5 championships and competing playoff runs and things like that. When you look at the Spurs today, they are in rebuild mode. And in the NBA, You only could be really good or really bad. And I think this is the time for the Spurs to be really bad. Hold on to your hats, San Antonio. Y'all going to be coming in for a bumpy ride this season. And by bumpy, I think your team is going to get knocked around tremendously. You know, I think that it's going to be situations where the Spurs are going to be one of those bottom of the barrel teams. Now, granted, could they fight? Yes. Could they compete? Of course. But I don't see a scenario where the Spurs are in the play-in at all. I think they win less than 30 games this year. I think they will have a bright spot. I like Kendall, but I think that the Spurs don't have enough to actually compete in the Western Conference. I don't think their roster is well put together for them to compete. I don't think their roster has enough, guys to make you to jump. Nobody jumps off the page for me with the Spurs roster. Nobody is making me look at it and say, well, he can at least get them 15 wins by himself. Because we have guys like that in the league. We have guys that when you look at them and you say, okay, you put the right amount of pieces around them, at least this team is going to win 30 games. Because he's going to get them 15 wins just by himself. We seen that in the days of Russell Westbrook with OKC. We seen that in the days of LeBron in the early days with the Cavaliers. We know like certain guys and certain levels of talent, you can just put a roster of, I don't know him, or who is that guy, and then they will bolster out, at least 30, 35 games, at least try to make a push in the later months of the season, March, April. But I don't see the Spurs actually being competitive. I see them getting knocked around. I see them having multiple losing streaks this season. I see them going through a lot of growing pains. I just don't see them actually being good this year. And that's no knock to the coaching staff, no knock to the actual players, no knock to the fan base. But when I look at the team, I don't think the front office is putting a team together to actually compete. I don't want to say the word, but I'm going to anyway, and that's tank. That's what the Spurs are going to do this year. I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to pull no punches anymore. I think they're going to win less than 30 games. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. As always, it's greatly appreciated. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can know anytime a video is being uploaded to the channel. As always, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. It's greatly appreciated. I don't continue to make these videos unless I get the response and love that I get down in the comments, that I get from you guys liking the channel, from subscribing. It's all appreciated. It's Astronaut H. This is the What More Do You Want Network, and I catch you guys on the next video.